Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 108th video on my video journal series. Today's day is Wednesday, the 27th of May, 2026. How's everyone been? I've been pretty good, thank you. And something I want to discuss with you today is, buying secondhand clothes. Now today I went to a shop and I bought some secondhand clothes for dirt cheap. I got some dress shirts, collared dress shirts, that is. And I got two Nautica shirts, a Rod and Gun shirt, and one from Kathmandu from a secondhand shop. And I think I got three of them for around $15 and one of them for $13. So the whole, the whole haul was only around $58, if my math is correct. So I got it for really cheap price, if you know what I mean. Really low prices for those shirts, which I assumed that regular retail price would have been way higher. But it's, I guess, secondhand fashion. It really is, I guess, a very quote unquote lucrative business. Certainly, it's a lot like buying a secondhand car. How, I guess, cars depreciate in value. Well, the same thing can also be with fashion, but also with some fashion trends, they eventually come back into the mainstream, and certain things like old jeans, for instance, go for a lot of money. But with a lot of secondhand clothes, they go for a lot less than a regular retail price. I can buy Tommy Hilfiger shirts. Now, if I buy a brand new Tommy Hilfiger shirt, that'll be a fortune. It'll be like 50 or $100. But buying a secondhand one, even off eBay or your local secondhand shop, they go for way less. And I'm like, all right, maybe the design's a little bit outdated, maybe it's been worn, but every piece of clothing is going to be worn eventually, just like a car. And I'm like, wow, you can get all these pretty good shirts. Some of them haven't been used or barely used, and they go for a fraction of the original price. I think I told you the story how I bought a brand new suit for a tenth of its original price. Well, that's the same thing. Um, with, I guess, the fashion industry, things are always changing. So I guess clothes can depreciate a lot in value, but they can also be like classic cars where, if there's enough demand, they'll eventually rise back up again. But, I always like to buy secondhand clothes. The jeans I'm wearing are brand new. I bought these at a regular retail store. Same with this jumper. However, with my, I guess, shirt, Ralph Lauren, this is actually a hand me down from my dad. So I guess it's second hand. But yeah, it's a perfectly good shirt. Very good quality. And it'll most probably last me for a lifetime. So, I mean, with the shirt I'm wearing, you can most probably buy this second hand for 20, $30 or whatever. The Ralph Lauren polos, they seem to go a little bit more than the Tommy Hilfigers from my experience, but they're good quality shirts. And buying a brand new Ralph Lauren polo shirt is going to be hundreds of dollars. But buying a secondhand one, it's pretty much the same thing. Still got the logo on there. Maybe the design's not to your liking, but it could be a very similar design or pattern or color, and just the price difference, I guess. So I guess that's one thing I don't understand about fashion is how brand new clothes cost so much money nowadays, but secondhand clothes are just dirt cheap. Um, and I guess I always like to buy, I guess, secondhand shirts. I don't buy used underwear or socks or anything like that. Even with pants, I like to buy brand new pants just for hygiene, I guess. Same with shoes. I'm not very much of a sneakerhead or whatever. I just like buying used jackets and shirts and tops and all that, because I feel that's just sort of towards my thing. I used to buying vintage graphic T-shirts, with old logos, maybe South Park shirts, anime shirts, and all that. Obviously now there are some graphic shirts are pretty expensive, especially if it's from the 80s or 90s. But they're very good quality. Some of them were made in the United States. I have some South Park shirts made in the United States. And I guess they're desirable because they're good quality shirts. You know, South Park, if you get one of an old TV series or anime or something like that, a lot of them would be made in the United States, depending on which, I guess, manufacturer it is. But the ones I got were made in the United States. So yeah, like I like collecting them because they're good quality. Obviously, they're very expensive, but yeah, I used to collect graphic T-shirts of like things that I like, series that I like, maybe video games or whatever. Um, but yeah, I guess with like secondhand fashion, um, it really is, I guess, um, the used car of the, I guess, the fashion industry, which I guess isn't a very good analogy to use, but just like used cars, they depreciate, so rapidly. Clothes and all that. And I think that's due to how, I guess, fashion's always constantly evolving. But I don't really care about fashion. I just like wearing like what I like to wear. And I guess the reason why old jeans, even jeans that are destroyed and damaged and all that, are still worth money is because it's in fashion. Jeans are always going to be in fashion. So there'll always be a demand and there'll always be a price point for jeans. However, um, you know, I guess some jeans are worth more than others. And I think that's due to age. You can have a pair of, let's say, 5-year-old Levi jeans, maybe whatever condition they are, and that wouldn't be worth a whole lot of money. You could buy it like secondhand for, you know, a fraction of its original cost. But however, jeans that are like, I feel like once they hit the 20-year mark and beyond, they eventually rise in value, especially if they're damaged. I feel like if you grab a pair of Levi's from like the early 1900s, even if it's in immaculate or damaged condition, it'll still be worth like a crap ton of money. So I think it's just due to age. Obviously, a pair of jeans from like the 90s or 80s is going to be worth generally a little bit more than, I guess, jeans made nowadays. Yet again, depends on a multitude of factors. I got some old like Jag jeans. Jag was like an Australian clothes manufacturer. I think they're still around today, but for like women's clothes. Yeah, I got a pair of jeans from them. Obviously, a hand me down from my parents, but you know, those jeans are worth like they're worth some money, maybe like 40, $50, who knows. But certainly not as much as I guess Levi's or another name brand. But yeah, I like wearing them. And yeah, I got some old. You might have seen me in some of my videos. I wear like old Hugo Boss jeans, the ones that's like sort of faded. Um, yeah, that one was also a hand me down from my dad, I think. And even though it's like damaged and all that, I still like wearing it as like just something for home wear. And if I were to sell online, I could most probably get like a lot of money out of it, even though they're damaged. So but that's not the point. I just like wearing them because they're like extremely comfortable. But yeah, I guess I'll never really, I guess, understand fashion. I'm not really into it, but yeah, secondhand clothing. Just like used cars or what's another industry that sort of like depreciates like that. I can only really think like used cars. I can't really think of anything else. Maybe like video games as well. Maybe the video game industry. You know how some old games, well, generally, I feel like obviously the video game industry is kind of weird, where it's like some old games are worth money, others are not. But I feel like obviously, to get a previous generation console or video game, let's say from now when I'm recording this, if you want to buy like a PS4 game, which was previous generation, that would be, I guess, that PS4 game would have depreciated a lot in value. So from $80 AUD, it would now be around maybe $20 or $30 secondhand. Obviously, it depends what game it is, but you can buy like a PS4 console and on average a PS4 game for way less than its initial retail launch price. And I feel like with gaming, just like used cars, as soon as it hits the 20-year mark, I feel like that's when prices eventually start to increase, depending on what game and what console it is, obviously. But realistically, over time, the amount of stock of secondhand goods is actually going to decrease. So, but demand always increases and decreases. So if demand dramatically decreases, then obviously the price will decrease. But if there's a surge in popularity for people who want a particular secondhand good, then obviously price is going to reflect that. And I feel like obviously that's with fashion. Theoretically, anything can be in fashion. We can bring back capes and top hats, but I guess it's what the fashion world wants to decide as fashionable. But yet again, I don't even know who controls fashion. Actually, who controls the fashion industry? Who controls that? Jeans are suddenly popular and all of that. Like, is there just like a single entity or group of companies that do that sort of thing? Why do we, I guess, keep certain things in fashion but other things out of fashion? Or maybe is fashion just an artificial construct of what we perceive as, the normal or not normal? And yet again, I don't really get fashion as a whole. I mean, I'm into like old clothes and all that, but like, I just wear what I want to wear. I don't really pay attention to what other people are wearing. Because I think like we should be expressive. We shouldn't really, I guess, follow what, um, you know, people, I guess, argue. As long as it's not like suggestive or anything what you're wearing. If you just like to wear an old T-shirt and jeans for you know, like maybe an old T-shirt for like an old thing that you like, or um, like an old T-shirt with like holes or whatever, but you still like it. Who's to determine that's like fashionable or not fashionable? It's just really confusing to me. And I guess like fashion's sort of like like fine art. I really never get like into it sort of thing, but it always intrigues me how it is sort of perceived. And obviously, yeah, I don't know anything about fashion, so this is just my own takes. But yet again, though, I just yeah like to wear what I like to wear, like and I often like just going to secondhand stores and just buying a bunch of like nice-ish shirts and formal attire and all that, informal attire as well. Um, because they're perfectly good stock, and they will last me quite a while. And to be fair, like I only buy brand new clothes. Um, if it's like yet again pants or underwear or socks. But when it comes to like t-shirts and jackets and suits and all that, I just like to buy them secondhand because those are I guess a lot more durable. And it's just personally what I'm into. You can collect like a secondhand shoes and all that, but I guess shoes degrade a lot more quickly than t-shirts, if you know what I mean, or pants. Yeah, so I'm really into, I guess, yeah, just buying secondhand shirts and just really secondhand goods. And yeah, I guess is there anything else I can say about buying secondhand? I guess it's a lot friendly on the environment. I think I mentioned this somewhere, but we consume a lot of clothes, and I guess that's one thing about the fashion industry is that Australia has a very high turnover rate of clothes. We I think we are. I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard somewhere that Australia's like the highest. I mentioned this before, I think, on the channel. The highest. Um, we have the highest amount of textiles discarded per capita. That means we are the largest, or one of the largest. I guess like not producers, but we're one of the like largest disposers. Like we consume. What I'm trying to say is we consume a lot of clothes, right? We consume a lot of textile goods, and we discard a lot of that. Obviously, we are a major, I guess, Western civilization. We consume a lot. We dispose of a lot. But we waste a lot of perfectly good clothes. Is what I'm just trying to say. I've been to a lot of secondhand stores. Obviously, people donate them and all that, which is why I understand they like to donate good quality, shirts and all that. But sometimes I see people throw away like, perfectly good stuff in like the bin or whatever because they deem it not fashionable anymore, or I don't know, maybe it doesn't like fit them anymore. And obviously, I notice a lot of people just buying new clothes and all of that, and I guess like the rise of, I guess, cheap, low quality shirts as well, um, and I think we should all, I guess, you know, I guess maybe focus not so much about quantity, but rather than quality, Obviously, I can't speak for everyone, but I rather, look where a specific t shirt or clothing product was made, because a lot of it is made under, unfortunately, inhumane, I guess, working conditions in third world developing countries where, you know, they're mass produced in sweatshops. Although I don't like to go like too deep into it, but I remember someone saying to me, a couple of years ago, you should really look into, buying clothes that are ethically sourced. And unfortunately, I guess that option's like very limited at the moment. And even like I said, some of the major, I guess, clothing manufacturers and designer labels have been called out in the past for using, you know, unethical practices within the manufacturing of their clothing products. But I feel like generally the cheaper, like obviously a clothing product is, the more questionable, um, the ethics are, of that. How much was that person paid to make that product? Where did it come from? Sort of thing. So I always like to take those into mind. Obviously, I guess buying secondhand clothes sort of mitigates that because, um, you're reducing the amount of textile waste, but you're not sending, I guess, money to people who, you know, endorse that sort of behavior. Um, so yeah, I guess like obviously it is a big issue. I'm not really qualified to speak on the issue, but that's just what I think about it. So um, yeah, and I guess like you know I'd rather just buy something that lasts me a long time. Like jeans, for instance, jeans last for a long time. They can last for as long as you take care of them. They're very durable. Um, and I think like if we want to limit the amount of waste that we produce, especially when it comes to clothes, it's just to buy good quality stuff that'll last you a long time. Like this jumper, for instance. This jumper I bought for like pretty cheap as well. Maybe I'm a little bit guilty of buying clothes that I don't know if they're ethically sourced or not. But at least with this jumper, this will last me a very, very long time. And it's very comfy. I like it. Obviously, you don't need to buy like designer $100 t-shirts or whatever, but I always suggest look at your local charity or secondhand shop and see what is available there. You can find some pretty good stuff for pretty low prices. And obviously, when you buy secondhand goods, you're saving those goods from being thrown out. You're saving things from being wasted. And why buy a brand new shirt? We can buy something that's sort of similar to that shirt for like a fraction of that cost. And you wear it and it will last you a pretty long time, pretty durable. And if it's like obviously no holes, no stains or whatever, it's practically a new shirt because clothes yet again are made to be worn. You're not gonna like you know even with brand new clothes and all that, they're gonna eventually, I guess, quote unquote, degrade or decolor over time. But yet again, it's I guess it's up to you. But that's what I choose to do. I like to buy secondhand. Um, to obviously limit the environmental impact, but to cut down on textile waste. And I feel like waste is a very, I guess, key issue that I've been really focused on, especially when it comes to the environment. Just waste with like anything, I guess waste within food, waste within textiles, waste within natural resources, and all that. So yeah, I'll say buy secondhand if you can. That rhymes. Maybe someone make that a slogan. I don't know. But look where I guess a product is manufactured. Or look at I guess the history of that um, certain manufacturer, and just take into account, I guess, um, you know, you know how a product is made and all of that, because I guess that's one thing the clothing industry or textile industry is sort of known for, low paid and textile sweatshops and all of that, which is I think an issue that needs to be resolved. But this I guess I need to stay a little bit back on track when it comes to secondhand goods. But that's just yet again what I personally think about it. Um, And yeah, obviously, I try not to, I guess, buy too much clothes I'm not going to use because there's a lot of clothes that I have right now that I think of maybe just giving away or donating because I don't really use um, them anymore. And there's a bunch of like clothes in my closet that I haven't even touched in like years. Because you think you want to buy something, you got to wear it, but you never do. So yeah, I might donate it or maybe sell it. Who knows? But I'll say you don't need like a grand wardrobe full of clothes. Maybe just have like a small selection of clothes. I'll say the less clothes you have, the less worries you have about what happened to wear tomorrow and all that. Maybe just have like a couple of outfits or shirts that you really really like and of durable quality, or good quality, I should say, that are durable, and that's what you really need. You don't need like a bunch of t-shirts that you're never gonna wear, unless you're like a collector or something. Um, you know, maybe you might want to, I guess, you know, get a t-shirt, but upgrade it to the size above your current size so you can wear it forever, which is what I do. Yet again, nothing wrong with that, but yeah, I'll just say be wise about I guess clothing, um, and I guess just like used cars, if you see a secondhand I guess item of clothing that's in pretty good condition, then um, obviously if the cost is a lot lower, then it will be a wise decision, I guess. Um, but yeah, so I guess what else did I do today? I didn't clean the desk area near my room. I didn't clean that. I'll most probably get onto that by the end of this week. But I did clear out my phone, thankfully, which is why I'm able to record um, this video journal entry right now. I did end up uploading um, a bunch of my video journal entries onto my computer, which are going to go onto my hard drive. And hopefully by tomorrow, I'll update all the video descriptions on my channel, or at least the ones that haven't been updated yet, and I'll add them onto the playlist for your convenience. I guess yeah, and that's pretty much it. And I guess my wise little quote for today would be you know what would be my wise little quote? Can I relate it back to secondhand clothing? Um, I'll say be expressive when it comes to clothes. Don't feel like you have to wear something. I mean, obviously there might be certain social situations where you have to wear a suit or formal dress code, but I wouldn't. I would say don't be stressed about what the other person's wearing. Um, fashion is all about you essentially. I feel like fashion is more of an individual thing. You focus upon what you want to wear, what t-shirt you want to wear, what shoes you want to wear. Um, I don't really get fashion in the sense that everyone has to wear the exact same thing. Like what you see of crowds in like the 1920s where all the men are wearing suits and all that and the top hats. Um, I don't really like that sort of thing. I just like it when people wear what they want to wear. And I think we live in a time where I guess, that individuality, I guess, has really been, I guess, encouraged or is a lot more prevalent. Where nowadays, if you walk out on the street, you see people wearing all different sorts of fashion, which is, I guess, a good thing if it expresses their individual personality or what they want to wear, and they're not simply pressured to wear a suit out in public, like or people were forced to do in the 20s. But if you like wearing suits out in public, then go ahead. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. It's just saying like not everyone, I guess, should be forced to because fashion dictates it. But yet again, depends on the social situation. If you work in an office, I guess you have to wear a suit, formal dress code. But even then, you can wear different types. You can wear different ties, different colored shirts, and all that. And I like to wear, I guess, like old-ish clothes. And I feel like that's just a part of my individual character, my identity. And I think it should be, I guess, a positive to dress differently, dress as long as it's not inappropriate or anything. Um, if you dress, just wearing an old pair of jeans with holes or whatever, but that's your sort of thing, then go ahead. Um, I think fashion is supposed to be a reflection of who you are, not a reflection of what I guess other people view you as, sort of. But yet again, take that with discretion. Obviously, there's always going to be situations where there's going to be a dress code or something like that, or what you wear. Obviously, depending on your country's culture and all that. But I'm just speaking at least here in Australia because that's my perspective on things. But yeah, I don't know about other countries and their, I guess, level of formality with clothes and all that. And like, who knows what will be in fashion. And I guess, before I leave, like, I guess, this could apply to realistically anything like trends and all that, how like certain old things are making a comeback. And I've said this before on the channel, but I'm gonna say it again because I wholeheartedly believe that this is gonna become a trend in a few years' time. This isn't related to fashion, this is related to another thing. I believe it will be a trend that people are going to use payphones again. Because at least here in Australia, all the Telstra payphones are now for free. Because obviously no one were using them. Everyone has a mobile phone now. But I believe it will be the new hipster trend or whatever that people are going to start using, like payphone booths to make like calls and all that. And there'll be like long lines, like specific payphone booths, especially for like those older ones and like the Rocks and all that, where they have like those London style payphone booths. I should really call them payphone booths because they're like public and they're for free now. So I should really call them, I guess, public phone booths. But whatever, I just use it interchangeably. I believe those are going to be the next major trend, the next retro comeback. Yet again, I might be wrong about this. I have seen people use those public phone booths. Actually, I've seen people use them at the train stations out on the street, but only like a small handful. I reckon it will become the next new thing if it hasn't already. And mark my words, it will happen within, I guess, 20 years, sort of thing. But I guess that just was on my mind. I said it before on the channel, but I need to reiterate it again. So if any of you are watching this in 5, 10, 15, or 20 years' time, then you'll know that I'm possibly right or wrong. It's 50-50. I don't know if it's 50-50. It's just my prediction for what's going to be the next new retro trend. Up with like Polaroid cameras, wearing old clothes. What's the newest old trend? I don't know. Maybe video stores, VHS tapes, or something like that. But anyway, I guess that's enough of me blabbing. But I guess I'll catch you all next time. Bye. See ya. Take care. Catch you all tomorrow.